Welcome to the Three Questions webcast series. I'm Wayne Baxter with One Capital Management. At One Capital Management, we develop and implement strategies for our clients which strive to grow, protect, and ultimately distribute their wealth. And we do that by offering investment wealth management services. Thank you for taking time to check us out today. My clients are often referred to as cross-border clients. Now, why is that? Well, it's because they're either U.S. or Canadian residents who invest in U.S. and or Canadian dollar-denominated securities, like stocks, bonds, and ETFs. Our process for advising our clients includes an in-depth discovery and diagnostic analysis of their wealth management goals and objectives, and as one would expect, that analysis will include a view of their estate planning strategy. Over the past 20 plus years, I've had these discussions with countless clients and their families. In addition to discussing how property and investment assets are going to be distributed, how their estate will provide resources for their descendants, their charitable giving strategies, how to defer or minimize taxes, there's usually a discussion about the importance of assigning power of attorney for finance and health, and having executors or trustees to administer their estate upon their death. For some of my clients, choosing someone for those important responsibilities can be a significant challenge. For example, clients of mine who have recently relocated from Canada to the United States and may not have established ties for these roles. Or those clients who are longtime residents of the United States, or Canada for that matter, and were born and raised here and prefer not to assign these responsibilities to next of kin or close friends. In certain instances, assigning a professional fiduciary may be the solution. On today's Three Questions webcast, we're going to speak to a professional fiduciary who will help us better understand the benefits and potential drawbacks of having a professional fiduciary. Joining me on this webcast is professional fiduciary Bernie Wesson. Bernard is based in Los Angeles, California. Mr. Wesson's mission is to provide highly personalized fiduciary services with integrity and advocacy on behalf of all entrusted to his care. Bernard is a fully licensed by the state of California's Professional Fiduciary Bureau. And full disclosure, just for everybody to know, Bernard has agreed to be my estate's fiduciary, and I really appreciate that, Bernie. I really do. Great to have you here, and thank you for joining the Three Questions webcast.
My pleasure. Nice to see you, Wayne.
Great to be seen. And I must say, over the years of getting to know you, you've helped me better understand the role of a fiduciary. I must admit, when I first met you, I thought it was fairly cut and dried, straightforward. Basically, one responsibility, and you have patiently set me straight on more than one occasion on how complex that role can be. So maybe, just for fun here, why not, before we get started, maybe we could talk a little about how you didn't become a professional fiduciary right out of the chute. You had sort of a circumlocution route from to how you became a fiduciary, and quite frankly, those real experiences you had helped prepare you. But maybe you could just sort of give us an overview of your career that led up to what we'll call your current incarnation.
Right. Well, for most professional fiduciaries, it is a second career. And part of the reason for that is that unlike a lot of other businesses where younger is better, in the fiduciary world, older might be better. Life experience, trustworthiness, perspective are very, very important parts of the job that we do. So I started out in TV commercial production. I worked for an advertising agency in New York for many years. I came to California. I was a partner in a TV commercial production company. And then this newfangled thing called the internet came up. And there was Google, there was Facebook, there were all these different platforms that basically siphoned the resources of our clients into other areas. And that business sort of cratered in a way. So I had a chance to either go in one direction or get out. And I decided at a certain point that I really was ready to start something new and different. And I started working behind the scenes for attorneys in both family law and estate, helping their clients organize what they needed to do to administer their estates And one of the attorneys came to me and said, you should get licensed as a professional fiduciary. So that's how I got started. At that point, and this was about 10 years ago, I turned to him and said, well, what's a professional fiduciary? I had no idea what it was, quite frankly, as a licensed position. Yes, I knew what a trustee was, I knew what a conservator was, but I didn't know that there was, particularly in the state of California, a actual licensed position where if you do this for a living, that you need to have this license.
Right. So in other words, you're regulated. Is another way of
In other
putting
words,
it.
we're regulated, we're licensed. The FBI has my fingerprints. The state of California has all my personal information, and you can find me on the Professional Fiduciary Bureau website, which is state-run, which can verify my credentials.
I got to say right off the top here again, in preparing for this episode, it really became evident that we're going to only be able to scratch the surface here today. We're probably going to have you come back for another episode, and maybe we can get into the more granular aspects of this. But for today, what we're going to try to do is just answer the first three probably most pertinent questions. We'll get right to it. And we're going to ask the three questions you should ask before selecting a professional fiduciary. And the one is obviously, what is a professional fiduciary, and why should I be selecting one?
Right. So I'm going to give you two types of answers.
Okay.
Right? One is sort of the
You could run for office now. You realize just
one is the legalistic answer, and it's one sentence. A professional fiduciary can be authorized to manage the care and or finances of another person or organization in private or court supervised matters. Right. So what's the human answer to that? What does it really mean for people or organizations or whatever? Well, what a professional fiduciary does is that he or she speaks for someone who can no longer speak for themselves. That means if somebody has passed away, they can't speak for themselves any longer. But if they have created a trust and a will, you need somebody to carry that out, to both speak and carry out their actions, their wishes. Very, very important that that be done in a fair, honest, trustworthy manner. Also, a professional fiduciary can handle the affairs of somebody who is living who perhaps no longer has the mental capacity to handle their own affairs, as a conservator or a guardian. And those roles are very closely supervised by the court, because when someone is conserved, you have to really prove that they are really incapable of handling this themselves and need somebody to walk in their shoes and have their best interests in mind. So I do both of these areas. I serve as a trustee and I serve as a conservator, and I also serve as an administrator of an estate, either if someone has a will or if someone doesn't have a will.
I got to say, probably the role of the conservator, and I think we've probably seen some public examples of this over the last couple of years, can be a really challenging one, because maybe the person that is, the person that's being represented may not necessarily agree with what is being recommended. So right. There must be
so when you have a conservatee, someone who's conserved, and I would say 95, 98% of people who are conserved really do not have mental capacity. In other words, they can't really communicate their wishes to any great degree, and they certainly cannot manage their affairs. They have dementia. They have Alzheimer's, These are very, very difficult human situations. There is a few outliers, and Britney Spears was certainly an outlier, who are highly functioning people, but they have problems in their lives, and therefore the court has assumed that this authority should be placed and given to somebody else. But that is really an outlier. That is not the vast majority of what professional fiduciaries do.
All right, so let's move on to our second question. Okay, so we've got a little bit of understanding what a professional fiduciary does. The second question we're going to ask is, what is involved in selecting a professional fiduciary? I mean, I guess what we're getting here is it's not something you would go into the virtual yellow pages and pick the first name in the book. I don't know if people use yellow pages anymore, but you know my point.
You know, it's a difficult decision. So a lot of people just don't know where to start. So they start with the internet, or they start by looking it up on the state websites or whatever, and they find people. But what's really involved is getting to know the person. It is, you know, making sure that that person understands what your needs and wants are, and that person, that you get a good feeling about how that person communicates, their professional experience, that they understand the issues involved in that particular estate or trust or whatever it is. So, you know, I understand it is a very, very difficult decision for people to make. And I probably spend a sizable portion of my time just talking to people and getting them comfortable. And, you know, sometimes they're comfortable with somebody else. That's fine. But I know that how difficult the decision is, and therefore you know, I have to really spend that time and help them across that difficult decision process.
Just you're curious about that. Well, I know you get a lot of professional referrals. What is the most likely, who is most likely to introduce you to the client that you're going to be meeting with? Like, who's the most likely referring professional?
Estate attorneys, right?
Number one, right? Estate planning attorneys.
On the planning level, they say, well, we don't have anybody to serve, so let's get a professional fiduciary to serve. Or if there is an estate administration and all of the heirs are out of state, or they're not really capable of handling the estate, they will probably have an estate attorney involved first, and then the estate attorney will recommend a fiduciary to step in and fulfill the needs.
We should probably move on to the third question. That's I just want. It might be stating the obvious, but I just wanted to see if there was an outlier there in terms of who makes those introductions with a estate planning attorney. Makes perfect sense.
By and large, but I tell you quite honestly, a lot of people find me through my website, and they call me, and they're just, you know, they're not sure what they want, what they need. They don't know me or anything, and they're able to reach me through my website. Then we chat, and away we go. You know.
Okay, so we've talked about, you know, the benefits of having a professional fiduciary, but it would probably be for clarity purposes, probably as our third question is to ask, you know, what are the potential drawbacks of having a professional fiduciary?
Well, there is, of course, the obvious one, which is we get paid. Isn't that annoying, right? You know, this is a profession, and we get paid for our services and our service for a family or whatever the entity may be. And sometimes there are capable family members and friends who can do this job. But you have to weigh that against the potential conflict within the family that could arise. In other words, if you have 4 children and you say to it, well, I'm going to save the cost of a professional fiduciary and I'm going to appoint one of my kids, got to realize that the other 3 kids might have issues, and there might be emotional interplay behind the curtain that goes back 20, 30, 40 years that could undermine the successful administration.
It's hard to imagine how an estate plan could possibly lead to siblings becoming adversaries.
Yeah, hard to believe, isn't it? I've never seen it happen.
It's like, so when I tell clients of mine that this is a possibility, they go, "Oh, not in our case," and maybe they're right, but I'm telling you, you and I have heard countless stories about how these happy families, once the demise of the parents occurs, and now they're left with an estate to deal with, how the relationship changes.
Well, just look at it two ways. Let's say there is the high functioning, successful child, and there is the less than high functioning, perhaps always insecure, not successful child. So the parent says, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to make the high functioning, successful child the trustee. That child very often ends up resentful of the other child because that child has all the responsibility in the work of doing this. And it's a lot of responsibility. And the other child is always second guessing them. How come this? How come that? You're not doing it the right way. This, that, and that. And the non-high functioning child, and when I say child, I just mean offspring. This could be somebody who's 60 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Is like they're resentful that they weren't chosen, or that somebody else has that position of control and power over the assets or the administration of the assets. So it's almost highly likely that there will be some level of discord.
And on another level, and again, we could go down another rabbit hole on this one, is often the point is that since nobody knows when they're going to die, they can sometimes forget or not bother to let the family members know, that the beneficiaries know what everyone's role is going to be, what they're going to inherit, and so all of a sudden it's now the role of the fiduciary and or the family member to say, okay, this is what you're getting. Or the lawyer obviously shares it with us, and there's a lot more rude awakenings to come. So having someone involved on a third party basis can sometimes alleviate some of that interplay between the family members.
And well, it happens all the time. Somebody passes away, then a family member or even a friend or a CPA who has been associated with the family for a long time gets a phone call and says, guess what? You're trustee of this estate. Right? What? I am? Yeah, you were named in these documents 30 years ago. And now your time
I want to retire.
Oh my God, now what do I do?
Bernie, I'll tell you right now, as I said at the beginning, we're only going to be able to scratch the surface here. But I think what we did was really, again, address what I would think are some of the more pertinent questions you would have with regards to looking at retaining a professional fiduciary. So for the folks watching or listening today, if they're looking to get your assistance or to check in with you to maybe get some initial information from you, what is the best way for them to reach you? I mean, I know you mentioned the website. Is there any other way, or is it?
Yeah, well, my website is bernardwessonfiduciary.com. Really simple. That is perhaps the simplest and easiest way for anybody, who is not taking down notes and just wants to remember something. My email address is bwesson, BWESSON, @mac.com. That goes directly into my email. And that's the second best way.
All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you again, Bernard, for joining us. Bernard Wesson is a Los Angeles, California-based professional fiduciary, someone who I know, like, trust, and respect. I appreciate you for making time for me today. Again, thanks again, Bernie. Take care.
Well, my pleasure. I appreciate your friendship and your support. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Take care.
I look forward to bringing you the 3 Questions webcast, and I hope you find them educational and informative. Please consider liking this video and subscribing to our YouTube channel. And to receive notification of when our latest webcast has been posted, please click on the notifications bell. Lastly, to schedule an online Zoom consultation with me to discuss your wealth management needs, please click on the link in the description box below, www.onecapital.com/meet with Wayne. Thank you, and see you soon.